Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into quite an extraordinary world. It's the one revealed by Peter Wohlleben in his book, The Hidden Life of Trees. And really, our goal here is for you to start seeing the forest differently, not just, a bunch of trees standing around. But as Wohlleben shows, drawing on a lot of surprising research, it's more like a community, a deeply connected, even social society.
It really is a necessary shift in perspective, I think. And Wohlleben himself is maybe the perfect person to guide us because his own view changed so dramatically. He started out as a forester, completely focused on timber production, the commercial side. He even says his mindset was like a butcher trying to understand an animal's feelings, just focused on the output, the board feet.
Right, that purely economic viewpoint.
Yep.
But something shifted for him, didn't it? In the forest he managed over in Germany, Hummel.
Exactly. He talks about interactions with visitors who were just walking through the forest, asking questions, noticing things he'd stopped seeing. And that, combined with his own sort of rekindled curiosity about nature, made him look again, look past the timber value.
And start noticing the weird stuff, the strange roots, trees growing at different rates.
Yeah, the anomalies that didn't fit the simple production model, and this led him to completely overhaul his forestry practices.
Okay, so to really get into this hidden life, we kind of need to adjust our own internal clocks first, right? Trees operate on such a different timescale.
Absolutely. It's almost geological compared to us. We're talking incredibly slow processes. The book mentions, for instance, the spruce tree in Sweden. They estimate it's over 9,500 years old.
9,500 years. That's staggering.
It is. Think about it. That's maybe 115 times the average human lifespan. So yeah, we need to think in much longer terms than just seasons or even decades.
And that slow pace allows for things we just wouldn't notice, which brings us to how they interact, their communication.
Yes, the secret communication methods. And it's not just metaphorical. We're talking about actual warning systems, defense mechanisms using things like scent and taste.
The acacia tree example is pretty wild, the one with the giraffes in Africa.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. So a giraffe starts munching on an acacia. The tree doesn't just defend itself with thorns or toxins in its own leaves. It releases a chemical signal, often ethylene gas, into the air.
Like an airborne alarm.
Exactly. And this gas drifts downwind to other acacia trees nearby. They detect that specific chemical warning. And the amazing thing is, they immediately start pumping toxins into their own leaves.
So before the giraffe even gets to them, they're already preparing their defense.
Right. They're coordinating. It's a collective defense strategy triggered by that scent signal. Poisoning the buffet before the diner arrives, basically.
Right. And it's not just airborne stuff, is it? He mentions taste, too, like with insects.
Yeah, that's another level of precision. It seems trees can actually taste the saliva of insects chewing on their leaves.
Taste the saliva? How?
Well, they recognize the specific chemical compounds, the enzymes, in the saliva of, say, a particular caterpillar.
Okay.
And then get this. The tree releases a very specific scent signal into the air. But this signal isn't just a general alarm. It's designed to attract the predators of that specific caterpillar.
No way. It's like calling in air support. Biological warfare.
It really is, like targeted counterintelligence, attracting the exact wasps or birds that prey on the insect currently attacking it.
That level of specificity is just mind-boggling. But not all communication is chemical, right? You mentioned slower signals, too.
Correct. There's also evidence of electrical impulses. Trees send these signals through their root tissues, kind of like a very basic nervous system.
Electrical signals? Like in animals?
Similar in principle, yeah. But the speed is completely different. We're talking incredibly slow. About 1/3 of an inch per second?
1/3 of an inch per second. That sounds almost uselessly slow for communication. How can that work?
Well, again, you have to think on the tree's time scale. For us, it's glacial. But for the tree, these signals can trigger relatively quick changes within the root system itself. Things like altering gene expression, producing defense chemicals locally, or even guiding how the root tip grows.
So it's fast enough for their needs within their own world.
Exactly. And apparently it's comparable in speed to the nervous systems of other slow-moving life forms like jellyfish or certain worms. It's efficient for their way of life.
Okay, so these slow electrical pulses, the chemical signals, it all points towards this bigger idea, doesn't it? The interconnectedness, the wood wide web.
Absolutely. That's probably the most revolutionary concept in the book for many people. This huge underground network. It's formed primarily by soil fungi, specifically their mycelium. These are vast networks of tiny, thread-like filaments called hyphae.
Right, the white threads you sometimes see in soil.
Yeah. And these hyphae connect the roots of different trees, sometimes even trees of different species, creating this massive underground information and resource highway.
And this isn't just random connections, is it? Research, like from Dr. Suzanne Samard, showed it's much more complex.
Oh, definitely. It's an intricate cooperative network, and its main purpose seems to be maintaining the stability and health of the entire forest community.
Wohlleben calls it a kind of social security system for trees. What does he mean by that?
He means that trees use this network to share vital resources. Sugars produced through photosynthesis, nutrients absorbed from the soil, they pass them back and forth. Research shows they share enormous amounts, enough to actually synchronize things like photosynthetic rates across the community.
So a tree struggling in the shade might actually receive sugars from a neighbor thriving in the sun.
Precisely. Whether a tree is big and strong or small and weak, the network helps balance things out, ensuring everyone, more or less, is functioning at a similar level.
That really challenges the old survival of the fittest, purely competitive view of nature. Why would they do that? Why prop up the weaker members?
Well, it seems to be about group fitness. The idea that the collective is stronger than the individual. A single tree, isolated, is very vulnerable. It takes a whole forest to create the right microclimate, the humidity, the shade, the protection from wind that allows trees to thrive long term.
So if the weaker trees fail, the whole system becomes less stable, less able to buffer against extremes.
Exactly. The forest acts as one large unit. Losing members weakens the whole thing. It takes a forest to sustain a tree.
And the most striking example of this, for me, was this story about the stumps. Trees keeping old stumps alive.
Ah, yes, that's a powerful image. Wohlleben describes finding living stumps of trees felled centuries ago, and the only way they could still be alive is if neighboring trees were continuously feeding them sugars through those root connections through the fungal network.
For centuries, just keeping the root tissue alive, that sounds almost like caring for elders.
It does suggest something profound, doesn't it? Maybe supporting their own parents, even after the main trunk is gone. It implies a deep connection, perhaps even recognition.
And there's science behind that recognition idea too, right? About roots knowing who's who.
There is. Research from the University of Turin Wohlleben sites showed that plants can distinguish their own roots from the roots of other species. And even more remarkably, they can distinguish their roots from those of unrelated individuals of the same species.
So they know kin from stranger, underground. That suggests intention, not just bumping into each other.
It certainly points that way. And if they recognize kin underground, Wohlleben suggests they show consideration above ground too.
In the canopy. How does that work?
He talks about true friends among trees, pairs of trees growing close together, and he observed that these friends seem to actively avoid growing their main, thick branches directly into each other's space. They kind of give way.
They leave room for each other.
Sort of. They seem to reserve the really thick, light-blocking branches for directions facing away from their friend towards non-friends or open space. It looks like a conscious consideration for their neighbors' access to light and air.
Okay, so we have chemical signals, electrical signals, resource sharing, kin recognition, even canopy etiquette. Let's go a bit deeper into the science suggesting more cognitive-like abilities. The idea of plant intelligence or memory.
Right. This definitely pushes boundaries. Dr. Monica Galliano's work with mimosa plants is a key example Wohlleben discusses. You know how mimosas normally snap their leaves shut the instant you touch them?
Yeah, it's a rapid defense response.
Well, Galliano's team repeatedly dropped mimosa plants, a potentially disturbing event. But crucially, the drop was designed to be harmless. After a number of repetitions, the mimosas stopped closing their leaves in response to the drop. They essentially learned it wasn't a threat.
They habituated to it. Okay, that's interesting learning,
But here's the really startling part. Memory. They tested these same plants weeks later, and they remembered the lesson. They still didn't close their leaves when subjected to the same harmless drop.
Weeks later, without a brain. How do they store that?
That's the big question. It suggests some mechanism for storing and recalling experiences, which fits the definition of memory, even without conventional neural structures.
Which leads us, maybe inevitably, to the really controversial idea, the root brain.
Yes. The hypothesis from František Baluka and others, they've proposed that the root tips, the very ends of the roots, might function as sort of brain-like structures.
Brain-like? That sounds like a huge stretch scientifically.
It is, and it's highly debated. They're not saying it is a brain like ours with neurons and synapses in the same way. The idea is based on observing how these root tips process information, those electrical signals we mentioned, chemical gradients in the soil. They use this information to make decisions, like navigating around obstacles, avoiding toxins, seeking out nutrients. It shows complex, adaptive, goal-oriented behavior originating from the root tip. It's acting like an information processing center.
Okay, processing information, making decisions, but calling it brain-like is provocative.
Definitely. But it forces us to reconsider what intelligence or cognition might mean outside the animal kingdom.
And now there's even research suggesting sound plays a role. An acoustic world for trees.
Indeed. This is relatively new research. Scientists have actually registered roots making quiet, crackling sounds.
Crackling sounds, like mechanical noises.
Possibly, but the frequency seems consistent, around 220 hertz. And even more intriguingly, researchers observed that the root tips of nearby seedlings seem to orient themselves towards the source of this sound.
Wait, they turn towards this sound. That implies they can hear it, or at least detect and respond to those vibrations.
It strongly suggests that, yes, that they're not just making noise, but potentially perceiving and reacting to the sounds of their neighbor.
So they might be listening to each other underground. What about sounds of distress? Wohlleben mentions trees screaming.
He does. When trees are under extreme drought stress, they can emit ultrasonic sounds. Very high frequency.
Screams. Is it like a cry for help?
Well, the sources are careful here. It's thought to be primarily a physical phenomenon called cavitation. Basically, the water columns inside the trunk snap under extreme tension, creating vibrations, the scream. It's likely mechanical.
So maybe not an intentional signal.
Probably not intentional in the way we think of screaming. But the question remains, could those vibrations still serve as a warning signal to other plants or organisms in the ecosystem? Is it a sound that indicates severe stress, even if it's mechanically produced? That part is still an open question.
Okay, so if we put all this together, the chemical talk, the resource sharing via fungi, the electrical signals, the memory, the potential hearing, Wohleben's conclusion is that the forest acts like a single entity.
Pretty much. He argues compellingly that we should view the forest as a complex, interconnected superorganism. A vast dynamic system with a kind of hidden intelligence operating collectively in ways we're only beginning to understand, far more than just a collection of individual trees.
So if the forest is this interconnected system, what are the big takeaways for us? How should this change how we interact with forests?
Well, the main ecological lesson is perhaps that, quote, a tree can be only as strong as the forest that surrounds it. This directly challenges a lot of traditional forestry practices, like thinning, for example.
Thinning. Removing the supposedly weaker trees to let the strong ones grow bigger faster. That sounds sensible, doesn't it?
It sounds sensible from a purely individualistic, short-term perspective, but Wohlleben argues it's often counterproductive for the forest as a whole. When you thin a forest heavily, you break those vital underground network connections. You disrupt the social fabric. You also suddenly expose the remaining trees to more wind, more direct sun, more air, and you reduce the genetic diversity that helps the forest adapt.
So removing the weaker members actually weakens the entire community's resilience.
Often, yes. You're dismantling the very support system, the collaborative network, that helps the whole forest withstand disease, drought, or storms.
That has huge implications for how we manage forests. And maybe agriculture, too.
Definitely. Wohlleben makes a powerful point about modern agricultural plants or crops. Through generations of selective breeding purely for yield or size or speed of growth, we've inadvertently stripped them of their natural defenses and communication abilities.
Awesome.
We've bred out the genes responsible for producing many of the complex defensive chemicals, or for forming strong connections with the mycorrhizal fungi, or for sending out those warning signals. They've become, as he puts it, effectively deaf and dumb compared to their wild ancestors.
And that makes them completely reliant on us.
Exactly. They can't defend themselves well against pests, they can't call for predatory backup, they can't efficiently share nutrients through the soil web, so they need constant human intervention.
It's a profound shift in thinking. Which leads to a final thought. If these trees, these forests, are constantly communicating, sharing, remembering, perhaps even hearing, through networks and signals we're only just starting to detect, what other vital secrets about life, about intelligence, about consciousness itself might these ancient, slow-moving communities still be holding, What are we not yet hearing?
That's the deep question, isn't it? If intelligence isn't confined to brains like ours, what else is out there, communicating in ways we haven't learned to perceive yet? It certainly opens up possibilities.